get it.
I tell people all the time, he's the most deserving movie star I've ever met. I don't think I've ever met anybody who deserves it more than he does. Because he's kind and generous. Remembers everybody. He just is a good dude. You wish everybody acted that way on set.
Sure.
They don't.
No. Well, we academics aren't all nice either.
No.
Or giving, or generous, or uninterested in money.
My hair person.
Ready?
Ready when you are, Mr. DeMille.
Well, right on my mark.
I know the reference. Countdown in 3, 2, 1.
You're back in the room.
Welcome to another edition of the Tiny Lab Talks. Today we're here so let's talk about cinema. The Tiny Lab Talks are a brief informal talk between, in this case, an invited guest by the University of Aveiro and a researcher and professor from the University of Aveiro itself, through the American Corner programs, and we cover topics such as technologies, innovation, research and culture. These conversations usually take place at where we are today, the University of Aveiro's American Corner Media Lab, with the support of the US Embassy in Portugal. So, first I want to give you both a warm welcome. So I'm here joined by Joe Reitman. You grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts?
Brookline, Massachusetts. Yes.
You graduated from Pitzer College in California?
I did.
And you have a degree in theater so that you could pursue a career in entertainment.
Yeah, theater and film, correct.
Do you want to tell us a few films where you've been?
That I've been in?
Yeah.
Some of the movies that I've been in, The Perfect Storm, Lady in the Water, Jane, Silent Bob Strike Back, and the reboot. I was in Clueless. That was the first movie I ever did. And
I saw that one.
did you? Me too. Yeah. And those are the movies.
And you also done TV series?
I have.
Such as Happy.
Correct.
You were a guest in CSI Las Vegas, Miami, and Supernatural, and also NCIS LA.
NCIS LA, yes.
Okay.
And The Punisher.
And The Punisher as well, of course.
And other shows.
A lot of shows. You're also the ambassador for Comic Con Portugal?
I am. Yeah.
And you're here today to share your knowledge both as an actor, producer, writer.
Whatever you ask me about.
All of them. And an acting coach as well.
Sure, whatever you want.
And also joined by Anthony Barker, one of our professors at the DLC, Department of Languages and Cultures, here at the University of Aveiro. You're a coordinator of the Research of Cultural Studies.
That's right.
And an executive member of the department.
That's right.
Okay. You teach film, literary...
History, cinema, and film form and film genre.
Also cultural courses in English for academics.
Yeah, English academic writing. Yep.
Okay. You've done some works in Europe and its stereotypes.
Yep.
Articles about theater.
That's right.
The 50s and I believe film in the 50s.
Yeah.
American British road movies.
Yep.
And sitcoms.
That's right. I'm a journalist.
And your most recent works cover the zany or absurd cinema,
Yep.
sitcoms, ultra-violence on cinema in the 70s, and movies about bridges.
Yeah. All of that.
What are movies about bridges? I was intrigued by that.
Movies about Britain, you say?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, anything that deals with Britain as a sort of heritage culture, the way that Britain sells itself by the kilo to the world, as minority film cinema cultures have to do. You can't make a living with a domestic audience, so you have to try to project yourself. And that's partly why national cinemas matter, because people care about how they're seen beyond their own shores. So I write about that.
Okay.
So quite simply, he's smarter than me.
Not a bit. Not a bit.
Okay, and now I'll introduce myself. My name is Beatriz. I'm a student in a degree of Computers and Information informatics engineering. Currently, I'm the financial responsible for the Núcleo de Cinema e Fotografia da Associação Académica da Universidade de Aveiro. I joined the Núcleo last year because I thought there was a lack of representative cinema, and I just thought we needed more cinema on campus and students needed to know about film. I joined as a collaborator, and we did the first cycle of cinema weekly on the team, and we also did a re-edition of Serbian short films called Microfafe here at Aveiro. So now let's get into the questions. Okay. For both of you, I'm going to ask you about your careers, both your career paths and key moments you had in your life. Did you ever feel that movies, TV series, or films had an influence in your career decisions? If you ever been inspired by a movie, and has ever a movie taught you something?
You want to go first, Jim?
I guess I have to now. No, I would say, film and TV shaped who I am. So I would argue that everything I've ever seen has something to do with kind of my evolution as an artist, since that's what I ended up doing. But, there were some films that obviously made a huge mark on me when I was young, even before I knew what I wanted to become. The first film would be Rocky, that I saw when I was 9 years old. And when my dad, he'd have friends over, he'd have people, he said, ask Joe what he wants to be when he grows up. And they would, and I'd say Italian, because I thought that he was just the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And really made a huge mark on me. And that film carried on in the sense that it shaped me studying that film and studying a lot about it, and Stallone himself encouraged me to be a writer, because he obviously wrote the film, to stand up for what I believed in, because he fought to be the lead in that film, and to realize that, you can kind of create your own destiny if you write more, which I'm sure that you agree with, for sure.
Absolutely.
I believe writing is the biggest key in being an artist, because it is the key to opening more doors. So that film had a lot to do with it. Seeing Robin Williams on Happy Days also at the same time, and seeing a change in comedy that I'd never seen before, where it wasn't just... he was a man creating his own vision in comedy. Also, I realized that there was something special for me too at that age. Those two things in particular. But as time went on, there are films that had a huge impact. Apocalypse Now had a huge impact on me when I was young. I just thought it was an amazing cinematic feat, and I'd never seen anything like that. Animal House, because I wanted to be John Belushi, and I ended up playing him a lot in movies. I've actually done John Belushi kind of roles and been cast, auditioned to play John Belushi in a movie of the week. It's like, so that was an amazing opportunity. And I'd say a film that really shaped things, which is a movie called Hedwig and the Angry Inch, which is an indie film that I loved so much that premiered at Sundance. And when I saw it, the writer had created this thing, and they'd done it through the Sundance Lab, and created this musical about this artist. And I realized I could create my own thing, and that's when I started writing more and directing more, kind of like dictating some of my own rules instead of being a pawn in somebody else's game. Started creating my own stuff. So I would say that's a little bit of an overview of the things that really affected me.
Okay.
Well, my answer would be, I guess I'm the TV generation par excellence. Brought up by television as much as anything else. And I remember where I was when Kennedy was shot, and I was in front of a TV set at the time. TV was a big influence on my early childhood, mainly American television. I lived in the Far East, where we used to get our films piped into this sort of second release, so there's a different film every night. So got to go to the cinema maybe 3 times a week as a teenager and child, and then when I got to university, same thing, second release type cinemas where you could get to pick up the classics from European cinema, but also great new American films as they came out in the mid-70s. And then when I came to Portugal and started teaching literature, because I have a background as a literature teacher, it was sort of hard to get students to read the major 19th century novels, but it was not that difficult to get them to watch film versions. And so by a small degree I began to transfer into teaching cinema through literary adaptation for the cinema. And I taught a course in the University of Minho on literary adaptation, and then I started to teach history of cinema here in Aveiro in our master's program, and then film form and film genre. I ran a seminar here for a couple of years before that for 5th year student teachers, and there was a real enthusiasm for cinema at the time. So that's how I got into it. I don't anticipate any of the other questions, but let's leave it at that. I did a lot of film and TV in my life, and at a time when television was really central to the culture, before the sort of fragmentation of digital and multi-channel TV. You've got events happening on TV in the 70s, watched by tens of millions of people. And that's a big thing now, because now that doesn't happen.
No,
except royal weddings, that sort of nonsense.
Well, I think that's the thing, is when MASH had their finale, that type of show, there were certain shows that I don't know anybody your age who didn't watch that live at the time, because there was no playing back, or there was no VHS. You had to watch it.
That's right.
You had to be home at 8 o'clock, or you were not seeing that show. And that was kind of like a big deal. And I felt the same way. It's like weird to think about, like, you can watch TV whenever you want to now. And at the time, I was watching 6 hours of TV, and I was like, I can't do my homework right now because it's on right now.
Now
I have to watch
it. You bend television to your will now, or cinema to your will, but in those days it bent you to its will. You had to see it because it was an event and you had to be there.
Yeah.
Okay, so in a way, you do recognize that there's a power to cinema.
Oh yeah, magic.
So, if you believe so, could you describe it? What's the power of cinema to you?
Well, we say that film is a medium and that cinema is a social practice. In other words, it's everything else around cinema. It's not just the seeing the film, it's also the dating, the spooning at the back, the having the meal, the going out in the cold, the coming home, the whole experience is important. And if you can combine that with a cultural event as well, a film you've anticipated, you waited to see. The last time I failed to get in to see a film was Titanic. And that's 1997, that's a long, long time ago. Since then I've been entering empty rooms and watching films on my own or with 3 or 4 other people. And it's that what I think the magic is, we mentioned this earlier, is being there with a large collective of people and sharing the moment in the dark room. The cinema is more or less coterminous with the history of psychoanalysis and psychology. And the experience of a large, warm, dark room shared by people, it's the only medium which is meant to be consumed in a large electronic medium that's meant to be consumed in a large public space. All the others are sort of domesticated, right? And it's that dimension which I find most valuable, and the one that I feel is most imperiled with the so-called home entertainment revolution.
I mean, I still find it difficult to get in some cinemas in the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, to go see The Batman, we waited 2 to 3 weeks to get into a theater because it was sold out everywhere, and that's in the middle of a pandemic. I'm used to kind of like, you have to fight for a seat, and especially in Los Angeles, when a big movie comes out, since it's in the entertainment capital of the world.
It's Film City.
Yeah, it's Film City. Everybody goes to see the movie. And because you have to be able to go to work the next day and discuss it, with everybody around the water cooler at that job. Sure. So in LA, I think there is a bigger delay in that sense. They're also charging $25 a ticket at the movie theaters. But at the same time, when we're dealing with the idea of cinema and the magic of it, there just isn't, for me, a better world for me to, like, I've always wanted to crawl into the TV. I've always wanted to sit there, and since I can remember, watching a screen personally, picturing myself there, in that world. And even though, like, it might be more personal for me, and I've been lucky enough to have the opportunity to watch the show and then somehow get into the TV and be in that room that I wanted to be in and be on that set and be like, I'm actually in the TV. That's amazing. I think everybody loves the escapism of movies. There's something to be said about, like, it's a portal to a different world. If a movie's done well, you are actually transported in time and space to another place. And I just think that's an amazing thing.
But not only that, movies also have social impact.
Sure.
They can change things.
That's my other question.
Even relatively staid films like Green Book, it's wet around the edges, but it makes a point, and then so does Brookline Mountain or all sorts of other films that can really break new ground.
For sure. That's for sure true.
So, picking up on that, in today's society, do you believe that movies have an impact and still have an impact on society as a whole?
For sure. I think, obviously, everything that we watch, whether that be even CNN or Fox News or whatever channel it is, it obviously shapes our perception of the world. So, knowing that the news does that, obviously film does that too. In pop culture way, it does it in a whole other way, in the sense that, it creates new communities and other opportunities for people to kind of gather together and to discuss new subjects. And believe in new thought processes. Or like you were saying, as far as social commentary, I believe a lot of the pop culture stuff does that as well. You know, pop culture, because it's so powerful, and people, if that's such a young audience in general, I think you can actually change the way people think, just because of the fact that movies have life lessons to them. You know, nothing's really changed since the Greeks, in the sense that a good movie follows a journey of an individual, and there's a discovery and a lesson at the end. And if you get teaching the right lessons, people learn from that. And you hope that, much like the Mother Goose fairy tales, or the Bible, or whatever it may be, those lessons transcend through society, and you hope that that does affect society in some way.
And if you need a bigger impact in terms of indexes of social, look at tourism related to the movies. Look at the whole New Zealand phenomenon with Lord of the Rings, or that I possess a movie map of Britain, which has all the places where important, significant films were shot, right? And people just tour Britain. It's actually put out by the Vauxhall Motor Company. It's the perfect marriage of touring cars and visiting a country. And of course, along the way, you've got the hotels people stay in, you've got the tours they go on. It's big business. People like to go to places where films are shot because they invest in it. And there's an interesting dynamic in that, because obviously what happens is not there when you get there. It's the imaginary, if you like. Movies create this huge imaginary.
Yeah, it's why I want to go to Mars. Because, I think that's the thing, go to space. But I think that's very true. And I do think that's something you said. Look, I ran up the steps at the Philadelphia Library because Rocky did. Like, I went there and I had someone shoot me running up the steps, There's a restaurant in Malibu where they filmed The Fast and the Furious and Point Break, and I had my friends take pictures of us sitting in the booth acting out the scene. I mean, there's something to be said about being in a place where, in some way, history has been made, and I think it's the same thing.
Okay, so in order for us to have a little extra time for some other questions, I'll ask my last one. Do you have any advice for the audience that's watching us? In your case, if they want to pursue cinema?
There are various places, in Portugal you mean, there are various institutions now that will allow you to do a PhD and postgraduate studies in film studies. It's a burgeoning area, it's not closed down. We have a cultural studies program in which you can do film, whether you want to do Portuguese film or any foreign national films. It takes a cultural studies approach, which is a sort of leftist, libertarian type approach, but there are other ways to study film. In fact, there are a multiplicity of approaches to film studies which are available to you within the program. But there are other universities where this is done too. The other day I was on a jury to appoint a full-time film teacher at the University of Lisbon, and we had 32 applicants for the job, which gives you some idea that there are a lot of people here who are qualified to teach cinema. Of those 32, I think only 4 were eliminated from the concurso, which means that 28 people were fit people to teach in higher education film studies, and so it's a growth area. I've supervised 5 PhDs in film studies to completion, and there's people out there who want to do this kind of work, and I think a fixed interest. My only caveat is that people tend to want to do contemporary cinema rather than history of cinema, and I'd like to see more attention, if possible, given to the sort of long genesis of film art.
Who cares about the past? No, I'm kidding.
In your case, Joe, do you have any acting tips, since you're an acting coach for a young audience that might be watching? When
it comes to filmmaking or acting, it's the same for me. If you want to learn about the craft, study the craft. And this is what's interesting. It's like, 30 years ago, this wasn't an option, but everybody has a camera in their pocket. And if you want to make a movie, you can make one tomorrow. You could absolutely edit on iMovie and start. It doesn't have to be a great movie, your first movie. Matter of fact, your first movie won't be a great movie because you don't know what you need to do. And you have to learn from your mistakes. And better to learn on your iPhone than with $1 million budget and never get a chance to do it again because you didn't invest the money properly. So make some bad movies. Just put yourself on film and act. You act for your camera. There's a scene that you like. The internet is an amazing resource of scripts. Any movie you want to read, there's scripts out there to read. If you want to write scripts, go to a website, go to scripts.com. There's 1,000 scripts there that you can read to learn how to write a script. If you want to act, take an acting class. And you can take an acting class, you don't have to take one in Portugal. If you want to act in Hollywood, like myself, I teach over Zoom. Everybody I know teaches over Zoom. You can take classes from great teachers in New York or LA or wherever you want now because of the opportunity of these type of things. And there's no excuse. If you want to be good, you just have to apply yourself, put in effort, and learn from people so you can get to a point to actually get the opportunity that you want to pursue that dream.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any audience questions?
Nobody cares. Nobody cares. No one cares.
And how much time do we
It's just
have?
a lag between.
Is it a lag? Is that what it is?
They need time to
There's
absorb
an internet. There's an internet lag.
It's like the CNN 6 seconds in case somebody swears. But we didn't swear.
It's all good. No, we didn't. No.
No, it's great.
Weird for me. We got, how much time? We can talk about anything.
I mean, I'm interested in the...
Impossible. Are you sure?
I mean, we can talk about something else.
Oh,
I mean, you flew me here from America. Don't you want to talk about something? What is your favorite movie of all time?
My favorite movie of all time. Well, I have to say Cinema Paradiso. It's an Italian movie.
Oh, there you go. History cinema. I love
There
it.
you go.
It's one of my favorite movies. All the approach that they have with the censorship, the thing back then. I liked it was filmed in Sicily, and like you said, I also went to Sicily, and I was like, oh, this is the place from the movie.
We've all done it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone has.
I tried to get married in Mykonos and Mamma Mia.
Oh,
No,
that's right.
you know, Mamma Mia chapel. Everybody wants to be married there because it was in Mamma Mia.
Is that why?
It's a picture postcard marriage venue. They've been booked up for the next 7 years. But no, I don't know. That's a bit too kitsch, pedozy for me. My favourite movie is the first 5 minutes of Don't Look Now.
Which I mentioned earlier was one of my favorite movies too.
That's
It's one of the best movies
just
ever.
Fabulous.
Not enough people have seen Don't Look. Watch Don't Look Now. That's my also advice. If everyone's watching right now, watch
I read
it.
an article on movies about Venice. There's just about 7 or 8 really great movies set in Venice. It's just the article's called Deaths in Venice, because they all have something to do with deaths. Venice is a dying city; it's sinking into the water, and they're really great movies about Venice. So again, another thing about movies, they give you a wonderful sense of places you haven't been that make you want to go there. Not because movies were made, but because they evoke the place. Venice is one of them.
Like Baywatch does that.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Don't Look Now is a great. I mean, it's not an unknown movie, but it bubbles under. It's not one that everybody would have on their list of
No, but it is for me. I mean, it was one of the films that I was encouraged to watch in college. You know, there was a list of films. Sunset Boulevard obviously was a film that not enough people watch. That I think is a classic. That's in black and white that not everyone will see. But that's a great movie. My list of films. We should have discussed this real quick. But like The General's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
You know, but with Buster Keaton, a film that everyone should see. Don't Look Now, I think, is a film that everyone should see.
Yeah.
I think Apocalypse Now is an amazing movie
film.
that really is. Obviously, if you have not seen The Godfather, you have to see The Godfather. It's a rule of cinema.
Yeah.
And but after that, like, you know, I think it then turns into like comedies that we talked about, which change people.
Yeah, Preston
you know.
Sturges stuff.
Yeah.
Wonderful stuff. How about a movie that makes you tear up?
Okay, so the movie that makes me cry at the end of the movie every time is Field of Dreams.
Oh, I saw that the other day. I couldn't believe it. No, left me cold.
Did it leave you cold? It's the baseball thing. But that's a baseball.
Yeah, it's a baseball thing.
You know, because as an American, baseball is a big part of your childhood. And at the end of the movie, when he plays catch with his dad, some of the strongest moments that I have with my father were playing catch in the driveway.
Yeah, I can see that, but it just didn't do it for me. I was a bit left open mouthed what all the fuss was about.
Well, maybe we should play catch.
Yeah.
Maybe that help.
Yes, Dad.
Yeah, right. But that was a movie that really, every time it gets to the end of the movie, it catches me off guard and I cry. What about you? What film is that for you?
Well, I certainly cried in Brokeback Mountain.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was really incredible. When he went and sniffed his clothing.
Yeah.
That was one of the greatest love scene moments I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Just go and smell someone's clothes after they're dead.
Yeah.
Beautiful understatement.
Yeah, it's a beautiful film. Do you have a movie that moves you?
Oh, everything moves me. I watched the TV series on the weekend, and I ended up crying at the last episode. They were really short episodes, but it was really sweet. It was about losing someone, and it was so well written, so well produced. I was looking at
What was it?
Tears. It's called Nem a Gente Janta. It's from RTP Play, one of those new projects done by new people that I was talking about.
Great.
And it was really beautiful. In movies, I cry. If it's meant to, I mean, I cried in the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Yeah, I don't know who you recommend this to, because I saw a movie called Shadowlands with Anthony Hopkins. I meets with him later in life. They fall in love and she dies of cancer. It's really, I was blubbing like a baby. Right. But I recommended it to other people, and they said, "Oh, this is cheesy. We don't like this at all." Right. Oh, you know, it's pretty sui generis, subjective stuff. That's what makes you cry.
Sure.
My wife doesn't cry at all in movies. She doesn't have that kind of engagement with them.
Right. I do not want people talking to me when I'm watching movies because I get that lost in it. I'm either doing one of two things. I'm either getting lost in it or analyzing it. Sure, I don't want to be interrupted doing either one of them.
Right, I see that.
Yeah. It's that important to me.
Yeah, I don't like distractions in the cinema either.
No.
But there's plenty of them with people crunching their popcorn, looking at their phones and doing what they do. Yeah,
a lot of that. I usually let my hair down and lean over them and be like, "Shut up." And I try to scare them, and then they usually get quiet. We have to talk in the parking lot afterwards.
More generally, it's a problem that Aveiro doesn't have as many cinemas as it used to have. I mean, they shut down Forum, and they've got Cine, which they shut down through COVID, and they're redesigning. Whether it will reopen with a lot of studios or not, but the city could turn into a desert for cinema if we're not careful.
I mean, right now we are the only ones actually giving screenings to whoever shows up.
Sure. Yeah, no, this is a terrible place for cinema just at the moment. I hope it will revive, but it hasn't. In the last 5-6 years, it's been going downhill.
Well, that's a positive note to end on.
People are consuming films all right, but they're consuming them in the privacy of their own home and on their own platforms. Right? And so I'm sure more film than ever is being seen.
For sure.
Who's to say 30 years from now that people won't imagine that is the natural state of cinema, on a small screen in your handheld device.
Or the screen comes back. I mean, evolution changes. Yeah. People thought...
Vinyl.
Yeah, vinyl. Vinyl came back. You're right, vinyl's back, right?
Cinema version of vinyl.
But think about it. 50 years ago, the TV came out, and people were like, we have to do something to keep the audiences. And the audiences didn't go away.
Yeah.
But the evolution is changing that, because now that they have one of two options, they go to... Either they have a screen in their hand that they were comfortable watching on, or they're at home and they're watching an 80-inch screen.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all that's left is really IMAX, big screen, kind of like, because that's what you can't have in your home.
Come back, Ben-Hur, all is forgiven.
Correct.
Lights of Arabia. Big cinema.
Yes, 70 millimeter.
That's
correct.
It's got to be. Widescreen, stereophonic sound.
Yeah, but I think that is the next phase. Is that kind of like, it's going to have to be bigger in order to come back, because, like you said, we have what they used to have at home. So or in your hand, and you can watch that on the subway or whatever. So I think there absolutely has to be an evolution.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, we do have a lot of film festivals even in Portugal. For the size of country that we have a lot of film festivals.
Yeah, we have an active film culture here, no question about that. But what we need is a mass audience generating revenues which can be fed back into making films in Portugal. And there's the problem. You can make a film and then you'll wait 4 years or 5 years to make another one. Even the best directors here have to wait in queues to be funded. It's tough because the market is too small.
Right. Maybe if they had a big star like me in the movie. Absolutely useless. I'm absolutely useless.
You could be the new Wim Wenders. Wim Wenders comes to Portugal, makes about 3 films about Portugal, and suddenly Portugal's on the map.
Oh, really? Yeah. Awesome. If anybody needs a movie with an American, that's useful. That's about it.
You've already liked Portugal, you just have to make movies about it.
I love it here. Yeah, sure.
It's a very photographable country, no question about it.
I shot a music video here, a long time ago for a band called Lullaby. That's how I first came to Portugal. I got flown over to do this video, and the most interesting thing is we were shooting in Porto, and I wanted to shoot stuff down by the river, and he's like, "It's so commercial. Nobody wants to see that. But the rest of the world wants to see this.
Absolutely.
Not enough people have seen that downtown beautiful city, and I thought it was so cinematic. And he was like, it's like Disneyland for us. And I was like, but for the rest of the world, it's just gorgeous, And I just think that's the thing. I do think there's so much beautiful landscape here in Portugal. There should be more shot here.
And the quality of light is fabulous too. If you brought up in Britain, Jesus. grey,
See light
colourless,
twice. See light twice a year.
over manicured. You know, the hand of man is on everything now, nature.
The Industrial Revolution still hovers over you. Right? Yeah.
I'm just a bit.
Everyone's still coughing from all the cold. Yeah.
Saturday night, Sunday. Operating a lathe. You know.
Can I get some
12 hours a day.
Can I get some more porridge, sir? That's all I do. Yeah. That's all good. All right. Well, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think
Great.
we're time, so I want to thank you both for being here, for participating, and thank you so much for answering all of the questions.
Of course.
I also want to thank the U.S. Embassy in Lisbon for the support here at the American Corner. So thank you once again,
Sure.
and thank you for watching. And that's it.
Thank you, U.S. Embassy.
Okay, lovely.
I'm free. You're free. You're free to leave. It was like a concentration camp. Now you can go. War's over.